Well, it looks like Rich is having a question and answer session over there, so I thought I'd start with a comment. A comment section. I'm going to just have a reaction video to this. Prior to this, Rich led everyone to Mystery Maverick's channel and to Fugate 1982 over on TikTok. But as a non-supporter of Darlie Routier, I wouldn't lead anybody to that channel. But that's on him. He says she's doing a fabulous job over there. That I guess that means he supports the lies that he sees. Anyways, we'll start out with Mystery Maverick right here, who also is doing a series on Darlie Routier, which you can go through too. But this is the very first. She's just started speaking, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds within it, and she comes out with something that's not a fact right off the rip. But listen.
I'm on one for over 5 minutes. The police were there in 3 minutes. Well, not all the police, but Officer Waddle was there within 3 minutes. And also the paramedics were outside still, and they lasted 2 minutes. So the timeline starts because the medical examiner said that Damon could not have lasted for any longer than a maximum of 9 minutes.
Wrong. The medical examiner did not say that. The medical examiner that was being examined by, I believe, Mosty on the stand. The medical examiner in this case never one time said that Damon could not last any longer than 9 minutes. The medical examiner did not say that. The defense attorney said that. So that's right off the rip. You know, if you don't read the transcripts, or if you put it out here like, well, the medical examiner sat there and said, no, Damon could not last any longer than 9 minutes. That did not happen. Mostly was suggesting, so could it be 2 minutes? We can't say. Could it be 3 minutes? I'm not sure. Could it be 5 minutes? We don't know. The medical examiner said they don't know how long he could last. Go read the testimony again, Tara. The medical examiner did not state in court that Damon would last no longer than the maximum of 9 minutes. That's a lie. But I'll turn this off and let it go for a minute, though.
Mine starts because the medical examiner said that Damon
did not say that. I'm telling you, go look at the testimony. The medical examiner did not say that.
Could not have lasted for any longer than a maximum of 9 minutes, an upper limit of 9 minutes. So you've got to take away 5 and 5, I think it's 53 off the top of my head. 5 minutes 53 off of that. And then the police there, she's had to call Darren, so Darren was downstairs already by that time. So she had no time to do all of this extra stuff that she did to...
All this extra stuff that she did. There is no timeline. Let me repeat that again. There is no timeline. And that came directly from Barb Davis, who wrote the book Precious Angels, that is very damning to the innocence of Darlie. There is no timeline. Darlie had plenty of time to set everything up because Darren went to bed an hour before her. The 9-minute timeline is a myth. It never happened. It never was stated by medical examiners that he would have lasted a maximum of 9 minutes. Never. Never will any supporter be able to show me testimony where it was stated like that. It was not. It was suggested by the defense. I challenged RJP and his panel to show us where the medical examiner said that Damon would not last any more than a maximum of 9 minutes. Show us that. There is no timeline. She had plenty of time in the world to set that whole thing up. Up until the point where the glass broke. There's really no timeline because Darren heard the last break. I challenge that panel. I challenge Fugate 1982 or Mystery Maverick or Rich Prater to show us where the medical examiner stated that he would live a maximum of 9 minutes. It's a lie. Pure lie.
So you've got to take away 5 and 5, I think it's 53 off the top of my head. 5 minutes 53 off of that. And then the police are there, she's had to call Darren, so Darren was downstairs already by that time. So she had no time to do all of this extra stuff that she did to kill the boys, run down the early and drop.
She did that before she called 911.
The sock, cut the screen.
She did that before she called 911.
Come back, cut herself.
She did that before she called 911.
Smash the glass.
She did that before she didn't smash the glass tabletop. It was just tipped over. But she did that before she called 911.
Turn over clean the sink, sorry, cut her own.
She did all that before she called 911. There was no 9 minutes. We contend that Damon was attacked twice. We listened the other day, and I have a video up of it, where Darlie's little sister, who's doing such an excellent job over there on her channel, let us know how Damon was stabbed 4 times in his chest and twice in his back. Yeah, Damon was stabbed 4 times in his chest and twice in his back, according to his auntie, who's doing such a great job over there on Fugate 1982. Now, as non-supporters of her being freed, we know that Damon was not stabbed in the chest. He was stabbed 4 times in the back. And he had a slash on his shoulder, and he had a small slash on his cheek area. But let's not mention the puncture wounds in his neck. So these people are putting out false information, when all you have to do is look. The medical examiner never one time stated that there was 9 minutes for him. Never.
The extra stuff that she did to...
You notice she said she did.
To kill the boys.
This extra stuff that she did. Oops.
Run down the early and drop the sock, cut the screen, come back, cut herself, smash the glass, turn over clean the sink, sorry, cut her own neck, stab herself in the arm with the opposite hand. There's so much.
Now, can someone tell me why she couldn't do all that stuff before she called 911? Someone tell me why. Is it because the medical examiner said that Damon could only live 9 minutes after he sustained those kinds of wounds? Is that why? Because I'm telling you now, no medical examiner said that. None.
That she would have had to do in such a little amount of time. She would have had about a minute to do all of this stuff, and then she would have had at a maximum, even if she had like 2 minutes, it's just not long enough. She would have had to run 75 yards down the alleyway and 75 yards back, meaning 150 yards.
Barb Davis did that in 26 seconds, and she stated it. She ran up to the area where that sock was found and back to the back window. It was 26 seconds. Now, again, I'd like for someone to tell me why she couldn't have done all this stuff before she called 911 and hollered for Darren.
Without being seen by anyone, in her nightgown and bare
You got to remember that the intruder was also not seen by anyone.
feet, and we know that they checked her feet.
Yeah, and we had someone on Danelle's the other day say that her feet weren't checked. some comment under there, and Danelle agreed with it. Now, we have Mr. Maverick here saying, yeah, her feet were checked. So which one isn't correct? So you're giving out misinformation trying to protect this child killer. They said her feet weren't checked. And Danelle agreed to it. It's on her TikTok.
The police asked for her feet to be checked at the hospital. She didn't have anything on her feet. So why?
She didn't have anything on her feet, right? Which means that if you look at the glass that was broke, you know, where she kept saying that she was going from the sink to Darren to give towels to Darren, which none of the towels were wet. All the towels had Darlie's blood on them. None of the towels had the boy's blood on them. But in order for her to go back and forth to the sink to give those 21 towels they said were coming out, she would have had to step on that glass many times. There are no footprints going to the sink. There's only footprints going away from the sink in Darlie's footprints.
Why didn't she have any marks on her feet if she didn't have it from the glass? But she would have definitely had it running down an alleyway on the concrete floor.
Absolutely not, because if you look at the evidence, Darren had a pair of black and white Reeboks with the tongues out and the laces out, and Darlie's blood drops were right next to that by the front door. So it's very possible that she could have slipped those on to go out back, because there were blood drops there to go out back and then put them right back. The tongues were flipped out. The laces were out of Darren's Reeboks. That's why she didn't have anything on her feet when she went outside.
Floor.
Well, here's if I could add something in on that, Tara, the thing that really bites into the timeline is, like you said, taking the sock down the alleyway. Now, they did testing on that. And to go one way, it takes 26 seconds. That would be, and that's at max speed. That's running full blast. And that test was actually done by Darlie Routier, by the way.
That test was actually done by Barb Davis. And it's in her book, Precious Angels.
Who I'm sure could move much faster than Darlie could.
Faster, yeah.
And so, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it was the 26 seconds. Okay, so that's going to be 52 seconds bitten out of the timeline.
The timeline of the 9 minutes. See, they keep going by this 9 minutes that they claim the medical examiner stated that Damon would not be able to live any longer than 9 minutes. But we both know, what I know anyway, that it was Richard Mosty that kept on. He kept on saying, so could it be 2 minutes? Could it be 4 minutes? The medical examiner said, we just can't tell. That was the medical examiner's end of that questioning. It wasn't 9 minutes. So when we said we just can't, when he said they just can't tell, it was mostly you said, okay, so we're 9 minutes. Go look at the testimony. Go look at it. I mean, the medical examiner did not say that.
Before we get to anything else, you have to take at minimum 52 seconds out of that timeline when you only have 1 minute remaining.
Remember, she could have done all of this stuff before she called 911. There's no reason why she couldn't have. She comes back into that house after dropping that sock, and she sees Damon crawling 25 feet away from where he was originally stabbed. We can see from the blood map. So that tells her that when she comes back in, Damon is still alive. She has to attack him twice. The timeline starts after the second attack.
So now that's giving you 8 seconds. Okay? 8 seconds for Darlie Ann to stab herself in the arm, stab herself in the chest, slit her throat, and
bruise her arms, make all these other cuts and things everywhere.
Themes and all that. 8 seconds? The timeline don't fit. Even the prosecution were very bewildered over the ordeal with the sock because they just nobody
knows why that sock was out there. It's my I feel like the sock was intended to go inside of that sewer, and it just didn't make it inside the sewer. Because if you look at the back alley, as she's going through the back alley there from Darlock and Eagle Road, you can see that she only comes up to a sewer when she gets behind that one house. I think it was intended to just get rid of it completely because Darlie thought her DNA was on it. We noticed she kept mentioning the sock over and over again. She mentioned it to 911. She mentioned it to a couple different nurses. She even told someone that she knocked the knife out of his hand. That's why.
Really knows. Nobody really knows. But one thing we do know is that
Darlie missed that sewer when she went to throw that sock down in it. That's what we know.
Darlie didn't have the time to do it.
According to who? You're saying this is according to the medical examiner, which is it's I don't know if you're lying or you just didn't read the testimony.
Plain and simple. The 911 call was 5 minutes and 44 seconds. And we could actually do another podcast on the 911 call at some point. But it just doesn't make any sense. And some people like to argue the fact that, well, there is no timeline. Anybody that ever tells anybody that don't know what they're talking about.
Okay, so Barb Davis said that there is no timeline. She straight up said there is no timeline on the Lisa Gibson show. So right now he's saying that Barb Davis didn't know what she was talking about. But Darlie Key seems to think that that's her biggest supporter. This woman that was on the last defense. Now Rich is saying that Barb Davis never knew what she was talking about because she made that exact statement. There is no timeline.
There has not been a murder committed anywhere on the globe that there hasn't been a timeline involved. So don't listen to that. That's
the timeline. Yeah, there are timelines. The timeline is started from when Darren went to bed. That's in a murder case. That's when the timeline started. Because as soon as Darren went up to bed, that's when she started her staging. So the timeline doesn't start because you guys say the medical examiner said there was only 9 minutes. The timeline actually started as soon as Darren went up to bed and shut his door. That's when the timeline started.
Wrong. It's wrong information. And there's a lot of wrong information that surrounds this case. And by the way, I wanted to say hello to Kim. That's an awesome lady there. It's great to see her here. And I see Tracy's here. How you doing, Tracy? It's nice to see you as always. Annie, did you want to add in on this?
Yes. One of the things that I have noticed, and I've tried to be objective, is that some things Darlie obviously could not have been bleeding when she planted the sock because there's absolutely no blood of anybody's outside. Damon, Darren, Darlie's, they didn't find any evidence of any blood other than what was on the sock. There was no blood trail leading to it. So Darlie could not have been bleeding at the time that the sock was planted. So
that doesn't mean that she couldn't have come back in and slit her throat.
That means that when you take a 911 call, and the only thing she could have pre-staged is cutting the screen from the outside.
Why couldn't she flip the table over? Why couldn't she wet the sink?
The table could not have been turned over until she's bleeding because her blood is on the table and it shows it was deposited in droplets and then turned over.
That's because she kept coming. She kept coming back and forth in there while she was bleeding with a wound that was splurting.
So there's and her shirt could not. It takes time for her to bleed as much as she was bleeding to be able to leave behind bloody footprints. In just the amount of time, you talk about, okay, we've got how long?
You can't leave behind bloody footprints by stepping in blood that was already there?
On a 911 call and then 52 seconds to do the actual from the window to the, or from, I don't know where Darren took off from. The back door, the window.
From the Roman room to the trash receptacle by the sewer where the sock was found at minimum took 26 seconds one way or 52
Now that's according to Darren, who we know has lied before, and that's according to Barb Davis, who was also a convicted drug dealer.
seconds both ways. And that was also done by a 29-year-old man that did the test. And it's unlikely that Darlie would have been able to do that good on a recreation, if you will, or after being injured, which clearly, if she had done it, which she had not, but if she had done it, she hadn't been stabbed or cut yet. Because
Can you tell us why she hadn't been stabbed or cut by the time she brought the sock out to that gutter?
Because like you said, Annie, there was no blood trail. And that's exactly correct.
There's no blood trail for an intruder either, and that house was a bloodbath.
So that's another thing that would have to be added in on the timeline in order for that to transpire.
Right. And here, okay, so we've got the 911 call is how long?
5 minutes and 44 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, now we got to add another 52 seconds, so we're up to 6:45, 6:46.
Correct.
And the paramedics were outside for some time as well. You've got to think that the paramedics were outside the house while the house was cleared by Officer Wallin. So that's some more time. Then the actual first responder said he saw, I think it was Brian Colby, said that that Damon, he saw the light go out in Damon's eyes around 2 minutes after he'd already been tending to him. So you've got to add on all that time. There's like literally no time. There's absolutely no time.
It would take.
So the 2 minutes that Koshak or Colby was tending to Damon, that means that the stabbing happened 7 minutes before that? Is that what you're saying?
It's longer. Right, it would take longer than 2 minutes before, because Waddell arrived during that time. Okay?
Right.
So his time of death is when the paramedics are outside. But in part of, so we know Darlie could not be committing the crime or running around cleaning up and throwing vacuum cleaners around and breaking glass. She had already reached super saturation point where blood is running down her leg.
They don't know what the saturation point was while Darlie was standing up. A lot of the blood, a lot of that saturation came from when she was laying in the stretcher before they got her taped up. So that's not a correct statement.
Legs from her shirt,
Yeah.
from above.
And also,
So it takes longer than that 2 minutes left to reach that point of blood.
the truth has just brought up a point that we've mentioned before and that I've mentioned in my video as well, is that Damon was still alive. Damon was still alive when they got there. So Damon could have run out the front door. He could have gone to a neighbour's house, anything, while Darlie was running down the alley.
Yeah, except for she stopped him because she came back in time and she stabbed him 2 more times in the back. That's what we feel.
Do you see what I mean? Because the prosecutors tried to state that, that they tried to create this theory that Darlie stabbed him a couple of times, then ran down the alley, and then came back because that was the only way they could try.
No. We feel like that when she came back, as she was slicing her neck, that's when she saw Damon crawling. Her intention was to slice her neck and then call 911. She had to slice her neck and then go back over and stab him a couple more times before she called 911.
Brian fit the sock in to the whole thing, and they couldn't. So Damon was still alive. He could have run to Darren.
Yeah, and that's what we think, because he was sleeping closer to Darlie, but he crawled 25 feet away from where he was originally stabbed at, which would put him from near the couch area over to the hallway area as if he were crawling towards his dad. upstairs.
Could have run out the door. He could. Do you see what I mean? Like, if he wasn't mortally wounded at that time, he could have done anything. Do you see what I mean? While Darlie was running down the alley, he could have done anything. He could have gone upstairs and got.
Yeah, he was trying to. Yeah, she didn't know. He was. I think he was trying to get to his dad. That's why you look at the blood map.
Darren shouted for Darren. The medical examiner said he would have still been able to talk and walk. So there was nothing stopping him from going to get help.
He'd be able to walk and talk. The same medical examiner is the one that you claim said he only had 9 minutes to live, but he can walk and talk. This is crap.
Let's see here. So, John's asking, has any testing come back from the new testing? Some of it has, but there's more testing going on. I hate to say it, but I can't go into any deeper detail than that at this time. I've not been given permission to. There's still a lot of stuff being tested.
Anything that is tested and anything they test, the results are public. The results are going to be public. This whole I can't tell right now. No, we could go if we wanted to and get the results from the February 2.
And a lot of things under investigation. Sadly, I can't go into that at this time. But yes, some of the stuff has come back, and there's more to come back. And
if they had anything that came back that favored Darlie, they would have permission. You can believe that.
And it's under what I call data.
That's all I can say.
Yeah. There's
Now,
also the data coalition. You talk about it being investigated. It's just taking the data that they have and applying it scientifically to the case and to the known circumstances.
And John's also asking, wasn't the screen cut from the inside? Very good question, John, because during pre-trial or at the point where Darlie was getting indicted, or however way you want to look at it, they had stated that the screen had been cut from the inside from a bread knife that was in the knife block. This is what the prosecution had said and the detectives. However, during trial, they changed that and they admitted that the screen had been cut from the outside. So that's a very good question that you're asking. I'm glad you asked that question, because a lot of people don't have the right answer to that. Now, somebody also asked, why did Darren leave home on the evening prior to the crime, and why? I've had a lot of one-on-one conversation with Darlie Lynn about that night, about things that were said, about things that had transpired, things that had happened. I know things that nobody knows. What I
So do I.
can tell you is this: Darren did leave that night, but he left because he took Dana home.
Now, there's why did he take Dana home? Well, Darlie at one point said she wasn't feeling well, so she wanted Dana to go home. But that's the only time in that whole night that you'll hear that Darlie wasn't feeling well. Dana stated that she wanted to go be with her boyfriend. So which one is it? Could it be because they were fighting immensely?
Now, there's two things now. In the one police report, Darlie Lynn said she wanted Dana to go home because she wasn't feeling well. And then Dana said that she wanted to go home because of she wanted to see her boyfriend. So, I was a little stuck on that. I wanted to get to the truth of that. And I did get to the truth of that. I'm not going to go into huge detail on it. Let me just say this. Darlie Lynn wasn't very fond of Dana's boyfriend at the time. And she wasn't real fond of him coming over to the house, and in light of that, that's why Dana chose to leave and go home. Now, I don't want to get into deeper detail on that.
Well, you can't, because what Darlie said on the stand was that she wasn't feeling well. She didn't tell if she wanted her to go home because she didn't like her boyfriend, then why didn't she say that on the stand? Because there's nowhere else in the statements what happened that night that she said she wasn't feeling well. Where before that did she say, well, I didn't feel like cooking because I wasn't feeling well? Or I didn't feel like letting the boys stay downstairs because I wasn't feeling well? I felt like, why didn't she just go to bed when Darren did if she wasn't feeling well? Think about that.
It'd be irrelevant anyway. Right?
It's not irrelevant. It's not irrelevant. When she says one thing on the stand and something else, that's not irrelevant. You know, Danelle told me that the fact that they left out the fact that they were arguing that night and he asked for a divorce or a separation. You know, I asked her, why didn't they put that in their initial reports? And she said, well, maybe she didn't remember. I said, she remembered what she put in the chicken noodle soup. But Danelle flat told me that the fact that they left that out was irrelevant. But that's enough of this. I've done 30 minutes of it, so that's enough. He's got Dr. Janice Townsend Parchment on the stand. Mr. Greg Davis is asking, do you have an opinion whether or not these wounds would have caused this child to die instantly? Yes, I have an opinion, and no, he would not have. Minutes. Yeah, correction, I thought it was Mosty that was cross-examining. It was Mulder that was cross-examining Dr. Parchment when this came out. I thought it was Mosty. Dr. Townsend Parchment, can you give us your best estimate as to how long this child would have survived after he had received the last of the series of 6 wounds? The last. Minutes. Remember, he's asking at the same time. He's not talking about a second attack. Something like that. Maybe as much as 8 or 9 minutes. The answer that the medical examiner gave, according to testimony, is you can't tell. There is no timeline. There is no 9 minutes, and the facts are right here in the case. If you would just read the testimony, the medical examiner, you see, these supporters are saying that the medical examiner said this. The medical examiner did not say this. The defense did. Nowhere does the medical examiner maybe, as much as 8 or 9 minutes, maybe, you can't tell. So quit spreading this bullshit to the people out here. The medical examiner did not say that. The medical examiner was coaxed into giving a time, but in the end, the answer was, you can't tell. There's people out there that have survived gunshots to the head. I mean, there's people that have, people are different. So that 9 minutes is just a figment of someone's imagination, because Tara is going to sit here and tell us, this expert is going to tell us that the medical examiner said it was going to be 9 minutes. But her research doesn't allow her to know that the medical examiner did not say that. You can't tell. Could be 9, could be 12, could be 15. You can't tell. Period.